Hi there. Welcome to Womb Stories Project. So glad you're here. I'm Kit Maloney, founder of Kitara, and we today have a super special episode, like all of them. And this one is with Natalie Elliott of Moon Baby. She's a womb health practitioner whose whole world changed through her first Yoni steam as she came into connection with her body really for the first time and into realization that her debilitating menstrual cramps were not something she needed to live with. And we share here how actually Natalie is the one who initiated Katara into a whole new way of operating as a team and a company. So stay tuned, listen, and enjoy. May this conversation and the recording be found by those who need it, be loved and integrated for the highest health and healing of all beings. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you for that, Kit. Just dropped me right into my body.
Beautiful. From that space, from the body, from the womb,
Mm,
invite you to share and express what's coming through you and her.
mm. I just got this image of it's just the swirling creative energy that's in each of our wombs and how unique that is to all of us. I've been really feeling that a lot, that in a world where historically women have been competing against each other or felt like they need to prove something, how beautiful it is to be able to tune into the unique frequencies of our own wombs and the ways that our unique soul missions are moving through them. And I mean, that's one of the things that this womb path really gifts us, isn't it? Is this ability to tune deeply into our own frequency, and to let go of all of those shadows of comparison and not enough, because in our own womb and our own body, we're always enough, and that's like the purest channel of ourselves there is. That's what I was just feeling into.
And that's the perfect segue into STEAM because that's the reminder to me. It's what I witness in myself and others is this fear that going inward because of the messages we get,
Mm,
the twisty, the gnarly ones in our culture about the wound and the body. It can be really scary. It almost every time is scary for me after 7 years of practicing because it's just that, like, what will I feel? What will I feel? And sometimes there is this well, honestly, it's just this beautiful awareness of, like, the womb has so much love for me
mm,
and for all of us. And so it's as soon as we sit, as soon as I sit, it's like it's that softening and it's that,
yeah.
like, release of the mental swirl, the comparison, as you say. So
Mm.
thank you for that entrance into STEAM and love to hear more about what your STEAM practice has meant to you and what it's revealed.
Oh my god, Kit, this is, such a, gigantic topic, and it's so deep for me, you know? For me, it wasn't just like I randomly decided to steam one day. For me, steam was like the entire way that I even got to know my womb. Like it was all through steam. I had a challenged relationship with my body when I was in my teens, as many of us do, and also in my early 20s. And I remember distinctly after college, well, when I was in college, I actually had a really intense menstrual cramps, so bad that I actually remember a few times in my life where my partner at the time would have to pick me up off the ground, bring me to the car, and drive me to the emergency room because my menstrual cramps were so severe. And there was a lot going on in my life at the time, but mostly what I can track it to was trauma and dissociation from my body. And it tracks because at the same time, I was also really afraid to touch my body. I had started, trying to use tampons when I was younger, and it never worked out for me because I was really afraid. And so there was this sense of a mind body disruption happening between my womb, my yoni, and I. And I had I had no idea any of these, womb practices or even the word yoni. None of that was in my awareness at the time. But it got to the point where I felt like my dissociation was so severe that I was in a doula training, and even the description of birth was triggering to me. Like I would dissociate from my body hearing the description of birth. And so I got to a point where the cramps were so bad, this dissociation was so bad that I felt something needs to change, like something's wrong. And I don't think everyone would have had that realization. I think a lot of the things that we feel we need to shift within ourselves have to do with our mission. And I remember some people saying to me, like, well, everyone has period cramps, and why do you need to be able to touch your vagina? Like, why does this matter to you? But something in me was like, this matters. This is part of me. This is important. And I did all this Google searching. And, when you search things on Google, like, why can't I touch my Yoni? Or like, why are my whatever? Eventually it starts to understand what you're saying. And so I started getting these targeted Instagram ads from different like womb healers and programs and things that, I had never heard of this spiritual nature of connecting with the womb. I'd never thought about the womb other than a reproductive organ. And this really piqued my interest because I had sort of spiritual tendencies. I was into yoga and crystals and all of that at the time. And so I was like, wow, what is this? And eventually I ended up going to some women's circles and hiring a coach. And at the time, the coach said to me, well, have you ever yoni steamed? She was like, you've been trying to bring your hands into your body, but have you ever just tried yoni steaming? That might be a more gentle way for you to develop this connection and just bring some gentleness to the places in your body that you felt these hard edges around. And I mean, these moments when I think about it, it often makes me cry to think about these moments that I was so lovingly guided to a gentle practice, something that wasn't forced, something that wasn't creating more trauma in my already traumatized body. And that coach sent me my first Yoni steam blend. And, at the time I was instructed to like use a pot and put it in the toilet and sit on the toilet. And I had a whole way of doing it then. And so I remember I turned my bathroom into like a sanctuary kit. Like I put fairy lights, I had all my crystals, I put on this like spiritual healing music. I wore this like gorgeous nightgown and tied this beautiful blanket around me. And I sat there for like 45 minutes. The steam didn't really stay hot that long, but I sat there for like 45 minutes just being in it and I sobbed. You know, I had I had no idea how deep this practice would take me, but I remember feeling the first time I sat on the steam viscerally that past experiences, past crossed boundaries, past things that I hadn't felt, stuff with my mom, like all of this stuff was just being pulled out of me. And it left me feeling raw, but it also left me feeling so powerful. I felt this visceral sense of like, I have this power center in my body. And from there, I began returning my blood to the earth every month, and I began learning about my cycle, and I began steaming regularly. And it now has just become a part of my life that is quite integrated. And every once in a while, I have one of those steams where it's really deep, where it's like a full ceremony. But I also think the beauty of steam is that once you have a relationship with the steam, you can kind of have a different vibe with it all the time. Sometimes it's just like a fun little, like, oh, this feels so nice and warm. And other times I'm like, wow, I've had a hard day. I need this. And it's become something that, in my practice, I recommend to women for all sorts of things, whether it's painful periods. I have one client who stopped her painful periods with her steam practice, like no more painful periods. And I should say, going back to my story, I also don't have painful periods anymore. I'm definitely not going to the ER anymore. Yeah. And so I just, I'm very grateful to the practice. And there's so much I could say, but it was my in. It was my in to anything that has to do with my womb, with my body, with being a woman. It was like the gentlest way for me to connect with the immense spiritual, emotional depth that exists within us as women.
Thank you so much. The gentlest way to connect with the depth. Oh my gosh.
Ugh.
Yeah, and just thank you. It helps me remember my first steam and these themes. The gentleness of it was so profound. I still cannot feel like I properly convey like what that meant to me. That something could be so gentle and the gentleness is what was profound. Like it's so different to anything else that I've experienced in in a physical practice or even in a mindset orientation.
Yeah.
And also, even before you said the power, I was thinking about, like, when I left this practitioner's room and walked down these stairs and out her garden and, like, into my car, I remember being like, "I am one with the divine feminine." I felt so powerful.
Yeah, because it just cracks you open. It's like, it lets it out.
It feels so fun to remember that piece, and I just wanna thank you also for naming that what happens with the development of the practice is we still have those moments with the candles and the crystals and the whole vibe, and yeah, and there's also a familiarity that grows, and so it's just like, "Yep, I'm gonna do a quick steam." But we've also, as a team, started incorporating steams into holding our intentions and helping us release blocks we have around our growth potential and other things that we've
Wow.
been through, and so to steam as a company has been this incredible thing that we've started this year.
Wow.
Um, so it's all of it, right? It's the whole range of you can really take it to ceremony when you want, and it can be something that's done way more simply at other points too. And so
Mhm.
thank you for naming that.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I love that you mentioned using steam as a way to hold the growth and hold the expansion. That's something we were chatting about a little bit before beginning to record, and I'm in a similar place where there's a lot of growth, a lot of expansion, and I think many of us know that our nervous system has to be ready to expand or we'll sabotage it, right? And often people recommend a breath work or something like that. But the idea of utilizing steam to quite literally ground that safety into your body, I just absolutely love that because that is one of the places I see steam supporting women the most. It's this mix of, steam heals your painful periods. Steam can help you heal so many conditions of the womb, but it also is just like for any woman, deeply restorative to the nervous system. This is another thing that I should mention the first time I steamed. I had no idea that my pelvic floor could relax like that. I didn't know that I was holding so much tension there. And I remember the visceral feeling of that opening and dropping. I had never felt anything like that before.
I don't think there is anything like it.
No.
I've never felt anything like it. Yeah, the softening, the release.
And the beautiful thing, though, about the softening is what I've learned about the female body is that the softening is the strengthening, because if we're constantly clenching, eventually we're going to collapse. But if we know how to soften, that's how we build strength.
Yeah. And that's like the whole rewiring is that balance. I still have room and excitement about that room to grow into the depth of understanding of the power of that softening because the soft actually coming back into the balance. And it's this regenerative loop of
Mm,
soft and strength and power and growth and soft and gentle and power and growth.
yeah.
Well, I know you also hold this really powerful practice of resting on your bleed. As we've spoken, you have been a real initiator for me and for other Kitara team members and for us as a company. We have all been womb healers, or many of us have been womb healers for a very long time. And we've had this awareness around the importance of resting on the bleed. And that, as a concept, I don't think is at all new to me, to tell you the truth. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And yet, I really honor you because you've claimed it in a way that we could witness and see and be in such inquiry about that it got us over this threshold of resistance to it. I mean, that's so freaking powerful, Natalie.
I mean, when you told me that when we talked a couple weeks ago, I just cried because that's my mission, Like I know that I think every woman deserves that. And so to have been able to, whatever it was, lead by example, share in a way that inspired you and your team to do that, that brings me such supreme joy.
Yeah. I'm so glad, but I'm so grateful too, because just seeing somebody doing it and claiming it and saying, I rest for 3 days. And so,
Yeah.
I was sharing with you that I was like, oh man, so someone's doing it as well as like talking about how we should. She's actually doing it. and was really lovingly, called in by my co-lead Rachel, who was like, "I think we need to do this, Kit. Like, as a company, we need to do this."
Wow.
I was on the one hand like, like, of course we need to do this. And then yes, the whole like, running a company in 2025 America like comes up pretty fast and
Yeah.
the how and is it possible and the logist and then it was just like if anybody is going to, figure this out, like let it be us. What a gift.
Yes.
And we have the space, we have the capacity, we have the flexibility, we are
Mm.
aligned with the mission. And it has brought up so much beauty. And to witness my own resistance has been so important and healing. And I just am so grateful. And I'd love to hear more about your journey into that and how you came to really claim that and share it with us. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just really fully receiving that. Thank you, Kit. I'm so glad you and Rachel and your whole team could create that for yourselves. It's such an inspiration for especially other female founded companies that are mostly women to be able to implement that into their workplaces. I get messages like this all the time, actually, from people who follow me on Instagram, just messages about like, Natalie, I rested on my bleed. Oh my God, that was amazing. And it always warms my heart because you kind of think you have an idea of what you're doing and what you're offering, but then what people receive from you is not necessarily what you thought. I never really thought that was what I was doing, was like inspiring people to rest on their periods, because I'm a practitioner and I help women with their hormones and all of this stuff. And that's my focus. But what's happened is naturally I share my life. I share my life with people online. I share my life with people in person. And what I do in my life is I rest on my period and I take time off and I say no to social engagements and I don't take clients and I don't really get on my computer. On my last bleed, I turned my phone off for 48 hours, completely off. And I have a record player. So I just listen to music on my record player. I read my books on the couch. I went for walks. I ate soup. I felt so restored after. It got to the time that I was on day 4, and usually I'd still be a little tired on day 4. This day 4, I was ready to hit the ground running because I was so well rested. And so it's interesting for me to think, like, where did this all really start? Because I think it's been a really slow, integrated process. Like I said, steam was my first thing, and that really brought me into my womb. And so I started doing all this womb healing, part of which was giving my blood to the earth. And that was a really big ritual for me. And so I would be resting on my period mostly so that I could really be in the depths of what needed to be released from me, which in the beginning was a lot of past sexual experiences and lovers, a lot of mother-daughter stuff, a lot of pain that I had felt. And sometimes I was resting because I was just in pain. And I was done pushing through the pain and I needed to hear what the pain was saying to me. I used to say this, it's like the womb will yell at you if you don't listen. And sometimes that's through the pain. And so that's how it all kind of started. And through that rest and through meeting my womb even when she was in pain and through facing those parts and those things that I hadn't faced yet, like the traumas and things that needed to move through me, some of which weren't even mine. It was almost this clearing out process, and there was nothing I could do but rest. It was too much to keep going with my day-to-day life. I couldn't. And so I gave myself permission to fully feel it all, and then it became a habit. I believe all women can rest on their bleeds. Everyone can figure it out. I truly believe that. That's my biggest principle is no matter what job you have, no matter how many children you have, no matter what stage of life you're in, there is a way for you to find rest for yourself. You just have to believe there is and set yourself up correctly. But I I am someone who's pretty relentless. If like someone tells me I can't do something, I want to do it. I have that about me. It's what makes me a good women's health practitioner is like I'm relentless. I will figure it out. And so, people saying there's no way you can take 3 days off every month. And I was like, watch me. This has been like a 6-year journey that I've been really doing this. And of course, some seasons it's been more challenging than others. I'm currently in a season of my business where, similar to you, there's moments where I'm like, can I do this? Gosh, is this going to work? Last week, I have a podcast that Kit has been on. I didn't record an episode before my bleed. And I almost was like, should I just record one on day 1? I was like, no, there's no episode this week. That's just what has to happen. There's no episode. Also, no newsletter last week. And it is what it is. And I used to have these thoughts, I'm not professional enough. But you know what? That is a masculine structure that we have been trying to live in for so long. And when I think back on it, it's like, what's going to happen if my newsletter, my podcast don't go out this week? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing is going to happen. It's going to be just fine. And it's my own resistance that's the hardest part to move through. And I'll say one more thing on this before I pause for a second. Women who are in corporate jobs. I have a close girlfriend who works a corporate job, and she once said to me, I really think I should get into this cyclical living thing. It would be really good for me, but I don't know how. I have to work Monday through Friday. And first of all, one of my big missions actually that I'm working on is developing a program for corporations. It's a big thing that I'm hoping to do in the next year. But the other thing I told her was, how can you do the bare minimum? Like when you show up to work on a Monday and you're bleeding, you're on day 2, can you only answer essential emails? Can you let yourself zone out and space out? Can you bring your heating pad and wear it while you're working at your desk? Can you let your close ally coworkers in that you're bleeding? How can you do the bare minimum? And that's what I encourage all women, whether they're corporate workers or mothers. How can you do the bare minimum today? And I think that's sometimes what we can do.
I love that so much. I think that's part of it. All of us can do it if we have the belief we can. Part of that belief is letting go of perfectionism,
Yeah.
right? By introducing perfectionism, the whole thing falls apart. And the perfectionism has an extremism to it. So I don't say that I do it however somebody would say perfectly. Like I'm
Yeah.
do plenty. If somebody was walking around filming me or something, I'm give gotcha moments like, she's responding to an email or she's
Yeah.
well, okay. And I've done my best to clear accountability. I've done my best to choose what's really going to be restorative and allow myself to come inward. And I'm receiving. And that was big for me on this past bleed. I've
Mhm.
really stepped through my edge on what I'm willing to be able to receive. My husband stepped up hugely just with his presencing the awareness of my intention,
Mm.
just being like, well, you need to go rest now. Like,
Ugh.
the kids are both off. We did the thing and now it's time to rest. I will be healthier for the whole
Yes.
rest of the next month and years. I see it in ways which I have over the years been better at not pushing through when I am really sick, like if I have the flu. It's like, don't work it because anything that I produce from that space inevitably gets so hard to detangle.
S
It's not aligned because I'm sick and like I can't do it. And even
Yeah.
I was running the company almost entirely on my own and answering every customer service email. I learned then that actually it was better to 3 days later, say to somebody, I hear you that it must have been a bit much to not hear back from me for 4 days, but here's why, and here's my solution to this concern.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that was so much better than whatever misinformed response I was gonna garner up with flu-ridden brain. And
Yes.
I'm in this consideration of we're not sick when we're bleeding, but we are bleeding when we're
We're
bleeding.
bleeding.
We're bleeding. Like our
We're
body
in an altered state.
in an altered state. And so it's this beautiful opportunity to see that and name that. And that's been
Mhm.
part of this rest for me, which I just wrote about for the first time was this is what Qatar is doing. We're caring for the bleeding ones. I've been saying this now for couple of months to myself and to my team and like I'm still feeling the energy of that the bigness of it because like we're caring for the bleeding ones because we bleed like that's so important and
It's
when we
important.
name it and know when we're bleeding and anticipate like and honor it,
Yeah.
we're just missing such obviousness of who we are and
Yeah.
how we operate in so many ways. We're missing the mystery but we're also missing the most pragmatic reality of blood is coming out of us.
I know. I really feel you. I just posted right before our call on Instagram this reel of me talking about how sometimes the most painful part about how bleeding is viewed in our culture isn't the shame, it's the just lack of acknowledgement. That it's just this mundane whatever. This is not no like this is not mundane. This is the most profound thing ever on so many levels, on a physical level that you're literally bleeding. I mean, just think about the physiology of it. If you're trying to go out and run your errands and your like blood is moving out of you, it just feels a little wrong, doesn't it? It's
What?
there's blood coming out of my body. I should probably lay down, right? Any other circumstance, I should lay down. But then also the emotional, the psychological, the depths that we can access in our bleed when we fully drop into it. It's no wonder that's been taken from us. It's powerful. It's really powerful. And I, as a business owner, and I'm sure you feel this too, that's when I get all my ideas. But you know, when I don't get those ideas, when I try to keep pushing through. And you know what happens when I try to respond to an email sending me her thyroid and estrogen lab results on day 2 of my bleed? I don't give her a good response. My analytical brain isn't working like that. And so this isn't just some fluffy, do this. This is based in reality and what we actually need. It just feels radical and foreign because our society is totally not set up for it.
It isn't, and it can be not insurmountable.
Well, if you think about it, when you just brought up the sick example, we've all figured out a way to take days off when we're sick.
Yeah. Also, if I were thinking about it from, yeah, well, I am with employees. And when your coworkers and people supporting you are thriving, it's a whole different experience of who they are. I actually remember this team retreat for the previous company I had before Katara. And I remember there was this woman on it who was going through incredible menstrual pain. And her whole being was, like, hunched, and she's, like, on this couch, and she's wrapped up, and she's kinda, like, one eye open, one eye closed type thing, and I look back on that, I'm like, "Whoa, like, what were we doing?" So interesting that,
Yeah.
that was 12 years ago, but even still, we were talking about pleasure, we were talking about women's bodies and caring for them,
Mm.
and so this is here for us all.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same way that steaming is beneficial for your emotional regulation and also the physical symptoms. It's the same with resting when you bleed. I actually think for a lot of women, something as simple as taking days 1 and 2 of your cycle, your first 2 days of bleeding off, whether that's off of working out or work or whatever it is you're doing, it changes things. It actually does.
Mhm. Yeah, it changes things, and I do think it's beautiful to witness the way in both of our stories, the connection to the body that we experience through steam has been this way to further permiss and be guided to the additional rest as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I love about steam. It simplifies moving with my cycle.
I think for me, it really bookends things too, because I always steam a day or 2 before my period, and then I always steam for a couple days after. And so it's like it's this container that holds the whole experience, like an opening and closing ceremony now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, my goodness, Natalie, thank you so much for all that you're doing and for the ways you've
Mm.
been so open and supportive of us with Katara. And is there anything else that's coming through for you from womb wisdom to steaming, all of that?
Mm. I think what I just want to say to anyone who's listening, which is what I love to remind all women, is that you deserve to have a really blissful bleed. And you deserve to have time off. You deserve to have a healthy cycle, to be in a healthy body. And it is possible for you. I just hope that all women know that. You know, I was traveling before I landed in my home now. I was traveling through South America and staying at a lot of hostels. And that was really cool for me in the sense that I met a lot of women who were outside of my usual bubble of women's health and womb wisdom. When someone would ask what I do for work, I'd start explaining, and women would tend to get really excited because they've never had someone who openly talks about their cycle like that. And I remember distinctly one woman, she was Dutch, I think, and she's wide-eyed gaping at me as I'm talking about what I do, and she was like, "You mean you can heal period cramps?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I always was told it's bad luck." And that moment was really pivotal for me of realizing how important it is for me to keep talking about this, even though it seems basic to me at this point, because a lot of women need to hear that they deserve better than things that everyone else has said are just normal. And so, whoever is listening, I hope you know that you deserve to feel truly well.
Thank you so much for that.
Mm.
all of it, for sharing it, and then for that conversation. Think about how profound that is for that woman to have received that from you.
Yeah, thank you. It's such an honor, you know?
It is. I remember that Kelly Garza of Steamy Chick, she was the first person to tell me really clearly that my brown blood was common but not normal. And I was in my mid-30s, you know? It just was like, "What?" I could barely hold in my memory how many times a doctor had heard about it and said, "Yep, yep, normal, normal, normal."
Yeah.
You know, mild to medium, period pain, normal, normal, normal. Great, you're one of the lucky ones. See you later. So, yeah, so then to be able to be held by somebody in a different truth of what that normal is so profound because if we don't know that that's out there, I mean, my first bleed, I bled a lot of brown blood for a number of
Mhm.
different reasons. And so I, for 20 years, right? Yeah. Was experiencing something that I had been told was normal and wasn't, just like that Dutch woman. And now I don't have pain. And there's something kind of remarkable to me that I have the gift of being able to like have to try to remember period pain. I feel so
Yeah.
fortunate that that is where
Yeah.
I'm at now because
Yeah.
so many women are walking around experiencing such debilitating pain. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, we're normalizing it. And the buildup of that is something that we're in a lot of consideration. And me now being in my mid 40s, it's just like, yeah, well, this makes sense that a lot of these additional ailments come up in our mid
Mhm.
40s. We are looking back on 20 to 30 years of overriding our body on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
That's a lot to try to cram into healing in 5 years of bleeding, which is what it seems our culture wants us to do right now. You know, so so, uh, yeah, so I bring that to my steam pot for myself and others.
I love what you just said is you bring that to your steam pot. I just wanna point that out because, yes, there is the healing of these physical things, but there's also our attachments to that is our
Mm,
story that I have painful periods, or the story that I always spot for 5 days and have this brown blood, or the story that my PMS was so bad I turned into a crazy person. And we get so attached to those stories when they become normalized, and Steam is a way to release those stories and to imprint a new one of ease. And so I love that you brought that in too. Thank you, Kit.
Thank you so much for listening, and here's my ask. Share this episode. We all know many, many, many people who have menstrual cramps, who have trauma, who have resistance to being in any relationship with their body. And Natalie's message really helps us understand the power of getting over the steam pot, getting on the steam seat, and how that can shift the whole relationship to the way we live our lives as bleeding people. So please consider sharing this episode with your loved ones, soul sisters, blood sisters, aunties, nieces, friends, and we're going to shift this. We're going to come into right relationship with ourselves as bleeding beings. And please know how deeply I hold that STEAM is one of the most helpful practices to guide us along the way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you'd also like to leave a review, that's super appreciated, and follow and subscribe and all the things. We're really grateful for you as a listener and for your support of the show. Take care.